Our next speaker is Lars Zimmermann from, well, actually, he says he's an own individual person and an economist as well as an artist. And you are very much related to the open source circular economy days, right? You are going to talk about that. It's my pleasure to have you here and you speak about open source and open economy questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know where my presentation is. Can you? Ah, there's this, sorry. Wo mache ich das auf groß? Darstellung. Okay. Hello, thanks for inviting me. My name is Lars Zimmermann and I'm an artist and economist. And I'm very interested and I'm working for a while now in the field of open source hardware. So it's about exploring hardware and make it more a growing movement. Earlier someone, one of the people that was before me on the stage said it's harder with hardware to do software. That's right. Harder with hardware to do it open source than with software. That's right. But a lot of people are working on it and there is progress made. And here are some examples. Maybe I will ask how many of you have heard about open source hardware? Okay, that's good. So here are just some examples how open source hardware could look like. You can see it's basically can be basically everything from heavy machinery to cars, to electronics, to drinks, to clothes, to laboratory supplies, and so on. And this is the only slide with a lot of text, and this is the definition of open source hardware, and I'm going to read it to you. It says, open source hardware is hardware whose design is made publicly available so that anyone can study, modify, distribute, make, and sell the design. So these are the freedoms. Study, distribute, make, and sell the design or hardware based on that design. The hardware source, the design from which it is made, is available in the preferred format for making modifications to it. So it's not sharing PDFs, it's really sharing editable formats like docs, for example. Ideally, open source hardware uses readily available components, materials, standard processes, open infrastructure, unrestricted content, and open source design tools to maximize the ability of individuals to make and use hardware. Okay, one of the things I did in the last year was writing the business chapter for this book about open source hardware. It's a 16-page business chapter, and it's under a Creative Commons license available on my website. So if you don't want to buy the whole book, just read that chapter, go to my website, and you can find it there. And together with some colleagues who are really experts in open source hardware as well, we founded the OpenIT agency, where we offer consulting and help to projects and companies that want to understand what is open source hardware, what's the right business model for it, how can I communicate it, how can I connect to this ecosystem, and so on. And we were always, and today we are talking about sustainability. How can open source help sustainability? And we were always convinced that this is the perfect combination, especially with circular economy. I will, in the following slides, replace the term sustainability more through the term circular economy, which is basically the idea of an economy that works without waste because everything is reused and recycled all the time. And to explain you a little bit why this is an interesting mix, here again is the definition for open source hardware. Let's put it to side and look at some of the principles of circular economy or sustainability, like ease of maintenance and repair, standardization and compatibility, upgradability and adaptability, design for dis- and reassembly, or just recycling. And let's compare it to the open source hardware definition and see. Okay, ease of maintenance and repair. Of course, if you make the design publicly available, it's much easier to repair the stuff. You need to see you need to be able to see how something's made to be able to repair it. So this works well. Standardization and compatibility. When we look at the open source hardware definition, it really asks for the use of readily available components and materials, standard processes, open infrastructure, and unrestricted content. So stuff people can get their hands on so that they really can make and improve the design. Upgradability and adaptability. of course, in the open source hardware definition, they speak at two times about modifications, that it should be possible for others to make modifications. Anything? Okay. 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 And this modification part, of course, is also important for the dis and reassembly bit in the circular economy definition. As well as that open source hardware is talking about that anyone is allowed to distribute, redistribute the hardware or the designs. And last but not least, recycling. And of course, if you really want to recycle something, then you need to know what kind of material is in there and how is it used. What's the proper way to win it back and really recycle it and reuse it in a product that then I'm also allowed to sell because the material is not patented or so. So you see, if you put these two things next to each other, you think, wow, that really looks like a great fit. And here's a negative example I always like to tell. It's some years ago, I saw this talk from a Cradletocradle company. I guess most of you know what Cradletocradle is. It's the idea that you have products built in a way that no material is ever lost again because everything can be recycled again and again and again without loss of any quality. And that guy's claimed that he has a cradle-to-cradle underwear created, so with some magical material that can be recycled. And but it's not open source. And he said, of course, when you're done with your underwear, put it in an envelope and send it back to us in the Netherlands, and we will recycle it. So I guess that sounds pretty absurd because, first of all, we live in a globalized world. Maybe you buy something in China, you use it in Africa, throw it away in Australia, and then you are supposed to send it back to the Netherlands. Or the average citizen in our society has 10,000 things in our homes. So are we supposed to put every of these 10,000 things in little envelopes? Yeah. Pretty absurd. And what's the funny thing with the underwear is that for many people it's not a convenient idea to put old underwear of them in an envelope and send it to somewhere. So no, it has to be open source what kind of material is used in that underwear so that wherever the underwear ends up as trash, the people there can look up, that material, that's the proper way to recycle it and then do it and create something new out of it. So, and to bring this question to the world, we joined a project, or we helped to create a project which is called Open Source Circular Economy Days. There's a days missing. Days. And this is a global hackathon exploring open source for our circular economy. So, and in that we just don't explore open source hardware, but all flavors of openness. Also open source software, open data, open science, open standards, and so on. And we made this as a global decentralized hackathon. So we put out a call for cities where people could come up and say, hey, I want to create a local event in my city. And then we connected all these cities through a platform and various online communication. And in the first year, last year, we had 33 cities from 24 countries on 5 continents taking part. Some really cool ones, for example, we had Shenzhen. We had the maker god of Shenzhen creating a local event, and that event was, for example, attended by the mayor of Shenzhen. So Shenzhen, for those of you who don't know, almost all of our electronics, like all the Apple stuff and so, comes from Shenzhen. It's actually manufactured there. And they have a huge open source ecosystem there. And this is the list for this year. We put out the call for cities a month ago, and this is the list of cities so far. So we have really cool new cities this year, and the call is still young. So we expect that we will have a lot more than 33 cities this year. And a lot more people from the circular economy joining and looking into what is open source and stuff. It's really interesting to meet all these people in online communication. And what we do is we just don't talk about open source. The whole way we create this event and this community is made with an open source workflow as well. So we have this forum, and we have a super transparent workflow in that forum. So everything that we, for example, in the Global Board of Stewardship, we are talking about, what we're discussing, it's all there in the forum. And you can really see, so the OSCE days almost do not happen at all in my email inbox. It's all happening there in the public, in the forum. So people can go there and search what are our problems, how we are approaching problems and can contribute to that solution. And in that forum, also some cities do this. So you can see, for example, how the local event in Barcelona is organized, when are they meeting, and it's really easy to join in because you see what's going on. You don't have to be filled in when you're interested in joining the project. And of course, all the challenges we have are shared there in the forum. It's 100 so far from last year, and I'm really curious what will happen this year. And so it's really, we are building up through the power of an event an ongoing open knowledge base that is accessible for international collaboration also in the future. And I, of course, want to invite you to join us. You can look at the website. Maybe there's a local event in your city. You can also ask the organizers if you can help them, or you can set up an event in yours, or you can just join us in the forum and help to develop these things. Well, I'm way faster than I expected. That's good. But I'm here to talk about business models, which I will do extensively in the workshop later. What are business models for open source, especially for open source circular economy? As said, there's this chapter in my blog, and the heart of this chapter is this image. It's called the matrix, the open source hardware business model matrix, and it does two things. On the upper part of the matrix, you see the advantages you can gain through open source. So if you go the open source way, there's a lot of things possible that are not possible the closed way. And of course, then you should look into these advantages and see how you can make them work for you. And the part below is just about the income sources you can then activate. And it's nothing surprising to this income sources. With a little bit of thinking, every one of you would come up with all of these things within 20 minutes or so. So one of the very simple ideas is you just sell products. It's just the same old business. You just sell the products, but you can also sell the service. For example, if you sell energy, then there's no need that you have closed source facilities. You can have open source machines, which make it easier to run your factory, for example, which can help to provide the energy even to lower costs than before. Then there are interesting foundation and consortium models. You can have a shop where you also have sell closed parts, or where you have an open core. Like in software, we see that people have an Office program as an open source version, but if you want to add some specific features to it, then you have to pay for them. Or you can provide hardware on request. So some designers do this. You can offer support or education and training. This is always open, that you sell workshops and so on. We will have a look at this in the workshop a little bit more. But one of the most interesting things for me in this new world of making business that is emerging is really that it's about platforms. So everything that can become a platform will become a platform is a term we like to say. And I plan to show you a video from OS Vehicle. It's a very, very well made 90-second video that explains you how the open source car OS Vehicle explains the platform idea. But the internet is so low here that I can't show you this video, but I encourage you to go online and have a look at this video. I will show you two examples though, but I want to stress out that these platforms I'm going to talk about are decentralized platforms. It's not centralized platforms like Facebook. It's not the idea that there's one place and all the people come and bring stuff to there, and then from this place the stuff gets redistributed back to the community. It's really like the OSC days, for example. Everyone can pick it up and do something where they are without necessarily have to bring it back to the core or to the center or so. And the most famous open source hardware example for this is of course Arduino. My little research, who of you doesn't know Arduino? Just one person? 2, 3, okay. So this is maybe the biggest open source hardware platform in the world. What this is it's a microcontroller. A microcontroller, this little thing that looks like a chip, is something that is in every intelligent device. So in your washing machine, for example, or in your phone, or maybe if you have a smart toaster, even the toaster has a microcontroller. What this basically has, it has an input area where you can plug everything in you want. For example, a sensor, let's say for heat. And on the upper part, it's an output sensor, and you can plug everything you want there. Let's say, I don't know, what's the word? Ein Ventilator? Ventilator. Yeah, you can plug in a ventilator, and then you can program the middle part, say, hey, when the heat goes up to 20 degrees, please turn on the ventilator. So you can make intelligent decisions with this. And it's around since 2005, and the world is just full of crazy and interesting, and the whole device is open source hardware. So the hardware is open source, and the software you use to program it is open source. And you have this huge community with an open source ethos. So if you browse the web, there are projects for everything using Arduino. So sometimes it's so easy that kids are building stuff with it. I would say maybe 80% of the Internet of Things startup creating their prototypes today with Arduino. There are people building satellites. Discern is using it. The list is really, really endless. Artists work with this, musicians. And the magic is that if you have a problem, you go and you can't solve it. You go online and you find a lot of resources. The Arduino forum has over 1 million entries. So if you want to build an irrigation system with it, for example, you don't have to start from scratch. You go online and you see there are hundreds of people that have built irrigation systems, and then you can copy some code there and see how they did it, how they approached the hardware problems, and so on. It's really this sharing of how I did it enables people to make really a lot of fast progress with their innovation processes. And this is really a decentralized platform because you can buy Arduinos from everywhere, not just from Arduino. There are a lot of Arduino clones in the market. You can buy from Chinese companies or from Spark funds. The exact same hardware, just not called Arduino. And Arduino is fine with it. They even sometimes publish little reviews of the clones. And you can find tutorials with Arduino everywhere, not just on the Arduino platform. You can find it on Instructables, a lot on blog, a lot is on GitHub. Just it's distributed to everywhere. So you see, this is an example for a decentralized hardware platform. Yeah, it's another Arduino slide. And here's another example I really like. It's not a successful company yet because the people running it are too slow to turn this into a company. But I really love the idea because you can explain so well what an open source hardware platform for circular economy might look like. What they have here is they have a catalog of parts, and all these parts fit together because they share the same geometrical grid. Like when you were a child and you had Meccano, all the stuff fit together because the holes had always the same distance. And the grid here is 4 centimeters to 4 centimeters. So all the parts in that catalog fit together. And they made a lot of stuff with it. As you see, there are bikes, vacuum cleaners, toasters, water boilers, and stuff. And the cool thing, after you don't need it anymore, you don't have to throw it away because you can reuse the parts and hack it and build something new out of it. And this is all works as a decentralized system because people can download the parts. All the parts are, of course, open source. This means when you're in Australia, you can download the parts and you can even offer them there in your shop so people can buy it. So it will really help to make this global spread open innovation happen. And the funny thing about this, I was just one of the key designers from the past. Jesse Howard is here in the building. I just met him. I never seen him before. I went outside and there was the lady explaining the exhibition that is there and said, yeah, and this is made by Jesse Howard. There's a piece of Jesse Howard outside, not an open structures piece, but another modular piece. And said, and by the way, there's Jesse Howard. And I said, wow, cool, Jesse Howard. So Jesse Howard is there, one of the key designers. Great. Yeah, and you see it's another example for a decentralized platform. And this is a little project I have of my own, very much inspired by open structures as well. This is my little lamp, and I use for the lamp, like the open source hardware definition demands, only readily available parts. So you see this is basically a toy. This is Heroes you can buy in every shop. And then I just use screws that you can buy at every hardware store in the Bauhaus, for example. And then I just use a brick you can buy at every store. And I assemble this into this lamp. And this means that people can go to the shops and buy the parts themselves and start to hack the lamp. They can, because it's also circular designed, they can use the same parts to create a lot of other stuff out of it. So sometimes I make workshops with this lamp where people first assemble the lamp and then they're invited to hack the lamp and recreate, make something new out of it. So it's more like an educational project that really explains a little bit why open source and circular economy is such a good, interesting combination, because all the parts of this lamp are circular design as well, fit into the definition of circular economy. So, and yeah, sometimes some customers hack it and send me back pictures of what they did with the lamp, and I collect them on the webpage. So if you bought one of the lamps from me, you can go from time to time to the webpage and see what else can you do with the parts you already own. In case you don't need a lamp anymore, you can create something new out of it. And you are connected to this big, maybe one day big, network of people with the lamp. Okay, and what you see here is really that the platform is in those products. Those products work because they are designed as a platform. And I think in order to have a really sustainable circular economy, a lot of the products we already have to be reinvented in that way, that they work as an open source based platform, also as a business. And how to plan a platform, this is what we are going to talk about in the workshop later. There is this little tool I created that helps you to remap your existing project or company or idea and really think through how it would look like if it were an open source platform, and what kind of roles appear, what kind of ecosystem you can then try to foster and use for your business, and so on. And I hope to see some of you in the workshop. That's it from me. Thanks.